Nick. Hey.
What, you didn't like the music?
I loved it, but it was missing a voice. I think you should have been singing, or maybe I should have been rapping, but a lot of people might have left by then. So I don't
See how
know.
many messages I've got about my singing. Hasn't been singing praise either.
Yes. So maybe you could work on that. If there's anything to work on, then you've got singing.
I don't know. Maybe I'll just stick to social. Laura, I'm really excited for today. We get to go and really talk about how social fits into business today. But I heard an interesting fact that I think I'd like to start with.
Go ahead.
So I heard some new numbers about quota attainment overall. Any guesses at what it would be?
50%?
You would think at least 50, right? Because that's a passing grade.
Yeah.
Quite a bit lower, actually.
Okay, so 25?
24.3% is the average quota attainment right now.
Oh,
So
crap.
if you guys are struggling, you're in good company.
Mhm.
Actually, after I got really sick, I started looking at what it took to hit quota and like do well without killing yourself in the process. And I'm really excited for today because one of the things I learned is copywriting, acting more like a marketer, and basically being your own demand gen engine is what really makes you stand out and be self-sufficient. And you picked one of the best companies to go and talk about this topic.
I think they picked me. I didn't pick them.
I've heard that Laura's name bounces around that office.
Or their name bounces around our office as well. It's like mutual bounce.
Who did you pick for our guests today?
I'm very excited to introduce Cognism today as our guest. Nick, are you going to bring them on stage?
Let's do it. So we got Liam and we got David. Hey guys, thanks for joining us all the way from overseas. I guess all of you guys are. It's just me that's here. So
You're from overseas,
I'm
Nick.
from overseas.
Sounds like you're the problem here, Nick.
I was gonna. Well, I am Canadian, so I don't know. Can we hold it against me? I'm sorry.
That's what you're good at.
I'll forgive you.
Thank you guys for joining us. I've been following you guys for a long time. We had you on the Content Power Hour. Me and Liam were figuring out it was quite a few months ago. But it's been really interesting watching how you guys have been experimenting with social and the different things you've tried. And I can't wait to dive into that. And kind of a teaser, I want to see how that's affected David's world. So it'll be fun to go and tease that out. We usually start with a question of the day. Is there anything that you guys would like to know about our audience?
Oh God, put me on the spot.
You put us on the spot here.
It's okay. We can go and just come up with something. It's up to you guys.
I would love to know the last time the audience did a post themselves on LinkedIn, or how many times, how many times they posted in the past 3 months or something. All right, that'd be interesting. That's what I want to know. How many times has the audience posted some original thoughts in the past 3 months? And they've got to be really honest. If it's 0, it's 0, right? But that's what I'd love to know.
Let's bounce it back to you, David. How many times did you post in the last 3 months?
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
Things starting now.
Liam would like me to post a lot more, but how many times have I posted in the past 3 months? I reckon we're probably averaging 3 a week.
That's good.
3 a week, roughly. There are good weeks and bad weeks depending on how busy I am. I'd love to be more consistent with it for sure. But I would say, yes, that's what, 12 to 24, roughly about 36, I think, 36 posts.
That's very nice.
That's good.
How about you, Lee? Are you keeping up?
Yeah, I reckon I'm probably a bit less than Dave, actually, but probably about 2 a week. That's actually, I've set myself I have a little target that I have to hit, and it's 2 a week at the moment.
I just watched David go and take a note.
Yeah.
All after this.
Yeah, the next time you come after me, Liam, I know you're opening it too, mate.
It's all about the quality, though.
That is true. True.
And you've been doing video. I don't know if that holds more weight too, but
yeah, it's interesting that that does slow me down sometimes because I'm trying to get the snippets together as well. I'm not quite sure. It's interesting. I always find that my you lose some reach on video, but then I'm still like testing whether it, but then I think more people, more people actually consume it. So I'm thinking that, like, although LinkedIn reports an impression on a text post, I don't know how many people are actually looking at it. Whereas when it reports an impression on a video, I think they might be watching more of it. I'm curious. I'm still trying to figure that out at the moment.
But it's not about the algorithm. It's not about the algorithm, is it, Liam? It's about quality of content.
Consistency.
Yeah, I'm trying not to get hooked on the likes, but unfortunately, it is directly attached to my ego. So,
Liam, do you have a Slack channel internally for social selling so you can get that ego like padded a little bit by the internal likes?
I like by dropping them in. So don't actually. We used to have like a personal branding Slack channel, and I always used to drop them into my like marketing channel to get the likes up. But actually, I think I figured out, like, sometimes if you get the internal likes on it, I think you send it almost down the same route like each time, so the same people. So I just think like prefer to sort of test it out organically. It also gives me a better idea of actually whether the content is like flying on its own. So I just had to suck it up. If I'm only getting 10 likes, it's my fault. So yeah, that's kind of been like what I've been going with at the moment.
The reason for me asking that, I have heard that people have groups on LinkedIn where they gather together and like each other's posts of the same ones, but I don't know where those groups are. So it's like, okay, we do that internally, but that brings you to the same rabbit hole. So, okay, like the same people will be liking you, but I wonder where those groups are. We want to help you, Liam, and your ego, and mine a little bit as well.
Yeah, I need to find some way of notifying all of you. He's posted.
Just switch the notification bell on. That's what they need to do. Liam's post. I actually, Laura, in the early days, I was employee number like around 25, 30 at Cognism. And some of our early salespeople were on some of those groups where you would post anything and you would get 200 likes because you'd throw it into this group and there was like this common, and but this is back in 2017, 18, and I think the problem remains the same, and they would also be asked to comment, but the comments would be completely irrelevant, and also it'd come from like, you know, bizarre names of like anonymous accounts, and so I think it was pretty obvious pretty quickly that perhaps that engagement was a bit falsified. No. So I wouldn't recommend it, Laura. If you're thinking about it, if you're desperate for like,
like take it down a little bit. It's okay. We're all in the same boat. Okay, let's kick off questions. Nicholas, do you have a question of the day for our guests?
Well, I think we already got our question of the day with the post question, but I want to read you guys a couple facts just before we dive into our questions and our conversation. I just want to get your guys' opinion on this, coming from both the marketing side and the sales side. I think it's going to be a fun opinion. So I found Crunchbase and LinkedIn threw out a bunch of data about what sellers are doing. So I found it really interesting that right now, top sellers are spending an average of 6 hours every week researching their prospects, which from years ago when I was tracking this actually doubled, which is interesting. So maybe LinkedIn's onto something with their deep sales. Not sure about their branding, but social selling is bigger than ever for good reason. Social sellers are 66% more likely to reach their quota than those using traditional prospecting techniques. What do you guys think?
Makes sense to me, personally. But yeah, I mean, it's a whole extra channel, but it's just like, and it's a channel where you can come in and interact with people sort of like content first, and also without the pitch. And I think if you nail it and you're getting that side of it right, then it's a great way for people to be able to open the door and speak to you first, rather than you having to do it like going. It's like it's almost a way for salespeople to get people to come inbound to them, rather than having to go hard on the outbound, which obviously has its place. But it's like if you want a full mix of it to sort of make yourself human as a seller, then I think it makes perfect sense.
I almost feel like we're in a world of like hybrid, where it's no longer just inbound or just outbound. It's this like gray area of the two. And this next fact won't be too surprising. 78% of salespeople that use social media outsell their peers. But this next one is the one that I found really interesting, is that companies increase their win rates by 5%, but they increase their deal size by 35%. I bet you if you went and peeled that away, because they didn't give me any more information, I'd be willing to bet that 35% is either inbound or have been following you for at least 6 months. What do you think?
I think inbounds naturally tend to have lower ACVs, right? Because they tend to be more competitive because of the nature of the nature of the demand. But I know for a fact that our team, our AEs, for example, are sending our posts to our prospects to give them advice, and I think people start to value. They maybe they feel like they're willing to pay more because they actually value the content and the thought leadership that you're putting out there at the same time. And so they're so that you create this loyalty factor, which means actually kind of product competitive advantages means less, or certainly the loyalty for for the thought leadership that you're putting out there is so important to them that people are willing to spend the extra money on it. That would be I suppose the logic that I would apply to a fact like that.
Yeah, like it's building that. You can build like trust and rapport on scale with social, right? So and people are always willing to part more money with people that they trust are like a friendly face. So that would be like my sort of same sort of logic and theory on it, I think.
I think you see it in kind of B2C creator world where they make, most of the big creators are making a lot of money off like merchandise, for example. And I think that people are willing to buy their merchandise, okay, probably because they want a new hoodie or a new t-shirt or whatever it might be, but also because they generate they get a lot of value out of the content that is being produced. So I think that would be the parallel that I'm drawing here.
Yeah. Too, just being able to ask questions, like in the comments, you guys have questions for these guys. This is the beauty of content. We can and being live is we can answer them live. But Laura, you'd hinted at there was a big question that we had to start with.
Well, I have a question turning more back to marketing and social selling, really, because whenever a marketer hears Cognism's name, it reckons totally with demand generation. You talk Cognism, you talk about demand generation. And again, it goes back into like demand generation. You mentioned, David, ACV is lower for the deals that are coming in from marketing side, and sales are running with the rest. So tell me how you see demand generation plays together with social selling to help through that customer journey.
So how I would see that those like social selling and demand gen sort of fit together. It's a good question. I think, naturally, influencer marketing on like social, where you're providing value up front, you're giving something away, and you're not, you're almost waiting and building relationships with people until they're at the point that they're ready to buy. So they're actually learning from you. You're giving them something before you're coming in and asking for that demo, or like asking for them to take an action. kind of just fits completely synonymously with what demand generation is all about, which is, you know, the whole idea is that you're supposed to be like creating demand for your product, but in social selling, you're also creating demand for yourself. People want to know you're making yourself like a person with an interesting point of view that they want to speak to and interact with. So I feel like they work perfectly hand in hand. The challenges is just like building up your profile enough that you and your like personality, I suppose, that you are actually in a position where you are actually creating demand, and also thinking about the content that you're writing that's actually interesting enough that people want to interact with in the first place. And that's the hard bit, right? Especially we have at Cognism, we have to say that we have a head start in the personas that we are going after are marketers and salespeople, which we just so happen to be working in ourselves. So we've got a lot to say about it. If you're a sales rep and you're targeting finance and risk professionals, like it's going to be really hard for you to start generating content and build up social selling that is going to appease maybe to that market. So there's definitely, I think, challenges there. But yeah, I think the two just work perfectly hand in hand.
Yeah. And there is a question for you, David, as well. Then now talking about demand gen. If a company nails demand gen, like amazingly great, just like you do, can it kill sales development?
No, definitely not. Well, I suppose, okay, purely theoretically, yes, if your demand gen was so good that every single time someone needed your product, then they came to you, then 100%. Now we have, you know, as everybody can see, like Cognism has the most amazing marketing team that are doing amazing work on the demand gen side. But I think Liam can attest to the fact that there are still a lot of companies that when they're thinking about contact data providers, in our case, they're still not quite thinking about us. You know, there's a lot of companies that are using our competitors who are very comfortable and happy with our competitors and will just continue to renew with our competitors unless we disrupt them. And you know, that's where I think sales development can come in a kind of more direct way. I think also some, you know, I think often sales development can also create demand in the same way as demand gen can. You know, there are a lot of people out there that don't know about, for example, in our case, that contact data providers are going to be worthwhile, and us having salespeople call them up, have very open discussions with them, educate them in that way. Of course, marketing are also doing that, but there is, you know, we've got fantastic salespeople who know tons about our market and our space and can really kind of consult our prospects in that case. So yeah, so I think in theory maybe, but in practice the two work hand in hand, right? Ultimately, companies should be you know, having a multi-channel approach to everything, and if done correctly, then both are going to work together and benefit from each other as well.
Yeah, the win-win. What I was thinking about then, like realistically, if you have you're building your demand gen engine, and of course sales development's going to be pulling its weight because we always do, right? So what does that realistically look like as you're doing that transition? What would you guys expect? So they would be calling, and then maybe would they be sharing information that like those or those like wow moments and sharing that with marketing so that they can create content? You know, what does that look like as you're trying to go and get the two working together instead of siloed? Because it happens, right? Nature of the beast. But yeah, in a perfect world, what would that look like?
I think some of it actually comes quite organically, right? So we can like stuff like wow moments is like, and stuff that we can take back from SDRs, like disco calls and all of that sort of stuff, like information that we can feed back into like a marketing content engine. But at the same time, a lot of the AEs and like SDRs will also speak to people, and they'll have easier conversations because someone will say, "Oh, I've been following your content for a while, actually," or "Oh yeah, I've heard about you. I've attended this webinar," or something like that. So actually, it does. They sort of work perfectly together in that same like for that exact reason. I think where sometimes it actually gets where we can probably work together better in the future, actually. And like something is when you're going enterprise. I think this is why sometimes there'll always be a place for self-development and demand gen, because demand gen we might have influenced with like a few campaigns, like 3 people who have or maybe 2 people who have some sort of decision in that account. And then sales development's got to go do all the rest, really, to get the rest of the people. And it's fine that we might have got 2 on site, but we need to win over the rest. And not everyone is going to be in all the places that we're trying to reach them hanging out. So maybe the big boss just never goes on LinkedIn and is never going to hear from us. So we need someone to get through to him on the phone. But I think, there's that. I think it actually happens quite organically, about how they sort of can line up together and work well. And then I think obviously you could get to maybe more like on the big accounts, maybe into more of like an ABM approach to really like nail it down, where you can have, I spoke to this guy, this is what they're looking out for or thinking about, and feed that back to marketing. And then we can start considering the content that we put out. And vice versa, we could be like, oh, we've had some direct feedback on a webinar from this person in your account, and you can make it more complex and like advanced in that way.
Nice. David, what do you think? How do you weigh in on this?
Yeah, I think I kind of mentioned it earlier with regards to the AEs kind of actively sharing content with prospects when they're asking for advice. I think that and definitely, I've got examples that happen all the time of the SDRs calling up and someone going, "Hey, we've seen you on LinkedIn a bunch of times. We love your content. Like, we'd love to see what you do." One person that springs to mind that's not in Cognism that does this, that does it really, really well is she's her name. I think her name's Mattia Shaper. She's like she is big on LinkedIn, and she runs the SDRs of Germany. And she essentially what she does is she posts about she basically posts the screenshots of the work that she's doing. Now, she was at SalesLoft before. SalesLoft target salespeople and SDRs. So she's basically putting up a highlight reel of her doing the SDR work, which obviously SDRs and salespeople are going to engage with, and then inherently it all kind of works together. So I think it goes back, one thing maybe for the audience to consider is the fact that myself and Liam are incredibly lucky that it's our we are also selling a product that we sell to sales and marketers. But that's not to say that, and also sales and marketing to so actively on LinkedIn, but that's not to say that companies can't take their thought leaders from their own, finance team or legal team and try and get them actively posting and also posting highlights as well.
Well said. Did we, Laura, should we go and answer Stacey's question quick and then we'll keep going?
Absolutely. I think it's relevant.
It's a good one. Mm-hmm. What if buyers aren't on social media regularly? Do you up your email game? Mm-hmm. Why don't we start with David? What do you think? What would you recommend for your team?
Yeah, so you have to be where your prospects and customers live, fundamentally. So that, I always say I get a bunch of messages all the time, kind of asking for the targets that we have for our SDRs and salespeople, and I always caveat it with yes, we're making 100 calls a day our SDRs are making 100 calls a day, but if I was targeting, for example, someone in risk who is less likely to want to be on the phone than a salesperson who is naturally an extrovert and things like that, maybe I wouldn't be making 100 calls a day, So yeah, I think the key piece of advice I'd give here is test everything, and then double down on what works, but don't stop. In the same way as calling is our best avenue for SDRs. I think for Liam will can comment on this, but I think in marketing, obviously LinkedIn is such a fantastic avenue for us in general. But that doesn't mean we're still doing a bunch of emails. We're still doing direct gifting. And Liam can obviously talk about the other stuff that perhaps isn't the best avenues, but we're still doing as well, just to keep a pulse on whether we're missing anything out. So for Stacey, I don't know what the market is, but I would advise, if email is your best avenue, of course, there should be a heavy focus, but I'm sure that some of your market is probably still on social anyway, and so perhaps doing investing a bit of time, 10% of the week is still worthwhile doing. That'd be my advice.
What do you think?
And
Liam?
yeah, I would. I think the first bit of just, you have to be where your customers, like prospects, live and are is the key to it. So we'd just ask them. So we'll just attend customer calls and demos and stuff, and we'll just sit there and listen to everything. And then normally the main question we have is just, where do you get your information from? Where do you like to learn?
Yeah.
Where do you spend your time? And you find out. And like for us, it's like, it means that we can pick up onto new trends. People start saying, "Oh, spend a lot more time on YouTube now or TikTok." We can pick up, and we know when we need to start investing more time there rather than on LinkedIn. Obviously, a lot of the time you confirm what you already know, but you've got to keep doing that. And yeah, I mean, you obviously pair that together with your own attribution. So if you're sending out emails and you're getting loads of responses, like direct responses, or even just like feedback to them, like obviously that works. That's the only information you need there. But yeah, I think sometimes you'd be surprised as well. People might think there can be a lot of silent people on LinkedIn, so you might think, or on social as well, there's no one here, but they might be like, yeah, I sit and watch YouTube videos all day, but they just don't comment.
Yeah.
But I feel like when people say that, and they say like, "Oh, my audience isn't on LinkedIn," yeah, but the VP of sales you're trying to call isn't just hanging out at their phone waiting for you to call either, nor do they want you to walk into their office and interrupt their day. Like, I think part of the problem is we're defaulting to old traditions. And David, we maybe won't be friends after I say it, but I think top down is no longer the best strategy. I would say that you're better going bottom up or middle out, building a business case and being ready, because I'd rather be ready to go to bat than strike out and never be able to go back again.
Definitely still friends after that, Nicholas. Don't worry. I think.
I was wondering with that pause. You're like,
yeah. I think it's just been me collecting my thoughts after I'm reeling from that comment. No, I think I totally agree. We do a bottom-up approach quite a lot. I would actually, though, again say it depends. If I was in sales and targeting a smaller market, and we had a massive TAM, then I might just go. I might just go straight to the people making the decisions. But certainly we find that if we're targeting enterprise accounts, then building that business case is going to be super, super important, because if we're only going to get one shot at this massive account, then we want to make sure we're as prepared as possible. Stacey mentioned higher ed, and this is just for you, Stacey, but my mum actually works in higher ed, and in the early days of Twitter, she created a Twitter account and just kept tweeting about the talks that she did and stuff related to higher ed, and she created a bunch of followers. She had she didn't even care. She had 6,000 followers. So maybe you need to go to Twitter and start posting on Twitter. Maybe that's your way forward. Who knows?
Make sure you give out your mom's.
Uh-oh.
We lost her.
Or I'll be back.
She'll also probably be watching this because she watches anything I'm involved with. So shout out to mum.
While Laura's recollecting, I just wanted to go and ask, and I can't actually wait to hear the dynamic between the two of you, because I have a pretty strong opinion of this. Why did so many companies get content wrong?
I think one of the main things is I could actually just probably do an hour long on this on its own. I think even starting with what you were just saying about going top down, I think you need to think about your content in all levels. So we've started to think about this, bottom up, middle out, top down. who's your content serving and who are you writing it for. I don't think companies come enough with a point of view or authority as well. So again, I think you can get like a content manager, marketing manager, just writing the content, but then you haven't got the authority that you need on the content from maybe a subject matter expert, or even better, like an influencer. So like I would say a subject matter expert and an influencer, they're not the same. One is an expert and the other one is an expert with an audience that follows them and cares about them. And then I also think that then there's like a focus on the wrong type of content as well. So we've been writing content for years for SEO and for lead gen, ebooks and playbooks, which are fine. Like written content will always have its space. It's great. But I don't think then there's enough focus on what content works in social and platforms like that, which is obviously largely you can have video and things that are way more interactive as well. I remember working in my first couple of jobs, and I mean, it's crazy to think like if someone made me do this now, I'd be really upset. But obviously, I was just doing what I was told. But it was like we'd get a video created, and I would just create an email, and I would send the email with a link to the video, which, as just the whole content experience, is like terrible. And then that was the video distributed, and like we were supposed to see if that was going to work, but no one receives an email and clicks to watch a video. That's just not how it's consumed. So I think it's like a mixture, right, of not thinking about what content their audience wants in the first place, who it's for, who they want to hear it from, and then on top of that, not even using the right format for the channel that they're going to serve it in, if I was to summarize it.
Hell yes. David, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Liam's obviously the expert on this, but I think that personally, I think a lot of companies, their content lacks any kind of personality at all. That's why individuals in companies are using their LinkedIn profiles is so much more effective than using a company profile. Is because immediately you get a personality, you get a face. So I think yeah, choosing your personality, being authentic to your personality is probably really important. I would say also like perhaps companies aren't studying LinkedIn, not in or socials in the right way, and the content that's I want to say doing well. What I mean is not kind of studying what the algorithm is doing. I kind of just mean that you see maybe the dark social trends a little bit more, and I know the posts that have done really well from my side have always been ones where perhaps we've shouted out someone who's mentioned something on LinkedIn, and we're kind of piggybacking on it, but also like elevating their content up more, or jumping on some kind of trend. And I think companies are just kind of pushing out or they're just trying to meet a quota of like, okay, I need to do 2 a week, 3 a week, which I know at the start of this Liam said that he was doing exactly that, but that's why your content's bombing, man. I think obviously it's important to stay consistent, but like don't make it a tick box exercise. Like try and be close enough to it to understand what is the flow and the mood of that social platform at any given time.
You know what I see all the time is that people start posting, and I am so guilty of this. Like I'm not even going to pretend like I didn't start here. So they either start out with advertising and they're just a living promo reel, or they move to the next step, and what do? They just talk to their peers. And we see it all the time, right? You're posting, and who's going to like that content? Only the people that love your company as much as you do, or are in love with your solution as much as you are. So it only is relevant to your peers. We think of change management. It's why change? Why now? Why you? What do most people post content about? Why you? So I would say that's why your guys' content is so great. And it probably, I'm sure you get all the time where people are calling people and they're like, yeah, I've been watching your content. And like, I'm really understanding why we need this, why this is a great addition. Otherwise, would it really help? They'd know your name, but they wouldn't know what you do. And we all know a couple companies that are in that boat.
For sure. I think people read through it so much as well, right? Like we've all now been on social for long enough that you can see when a post is, even if it's trying to be subtle about it, when it's just trying to sell their product as opposed to give actual value. And I think that's always been our marketing. Again, Liam, you're going to have to comment on this, but my understanding of what our CMO has always said to the marketing team and any of us that are doing content is like, it's all about us just giving value, and the rest should kind of work itself out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, then it's like you can get people to start to, rather than just focus on the people who already evangelize you, like you start to create like more fans basically by people who actually just want to come back for more. And that's basically what we want to do with the content we're putting out.
There's just something so beautiful when you get that community in the comments. And it's not only does it get traction, because I'll be honest, my lowest performing posts have sold the most. All of my high performing, high viewed posts might get me more followers, but they don't ever turn into sales. And so it's when you get that community and they ask really good questions that I think that's when social really works for you, not just getting views. But I have a dangerous question for you guys. Is there a danger? Do you guys see a danger in sellers having a strong personal brand?
In what sense do you see the danger? Like
they're going to get poached.
Are they going to get poached? Or are they going to? Well, I see it all too often too, where somebody will start selling their own thing or side gig over top, be higher focus. But what do you guys think? Like, is there a real danger, or what would be your guidelines that you would draw of like, this is a great investment for you and the company versus just you?
Yeah, I've got some thoughts on this. I think so I think in my case, I mentioned at the top of this that, I have good weeks and bad weeks in terms of posting. And I think a lot of that is down to, and Liam and the team know this, is that like really my priority is still in my team and the day-to-day of my team. And I will prioritize, training a member of my team over doing something like this or doing, writing up a post. And fortunately, I'm super fortunate marketing can like support me in a lot of ways to make sure that I can keep pushing stuff out for my followers. But that will always be my priority. And I agree with you, Nicholas. I think there's there are people that perhaps end up struggling in their jobs because they're more maybe they're more focused on their social and their own presence. And I think also sometimes you see people hired just on their LinkedIn presence, which sounds really good, but if they get in role and then, like often they get found out once they're in role. So totally agree. I think there's a second piece here in terms of companies being worried about elevating their people because perhaps they might get poached, right? That's I think if anybody is out there and worried about that, that is totally selfish, and you should always be elevating your people if you can. And because if ultimately, there will always be a net reward in time. I can think of, we had a situation, and I won't name who, I won't put names on this, but we had a situation where we had one of the members of the team perform unbelievably well. We had this crazy incentive where they won a Rolex, and they posted online about the fact that they won this Rolex, and they were super happy about it. And then they, and this is a shout out for anybody that needs an SDR job. We've done those kind of incentives in the past, and literally on the back of that post, or like our understanding of things is on the back of that post, a company approached him and said, "Hey, we know you're the best performer at Cognism. Like, we'd love to kind of have a conversation because we'd love to hire you." So I think there was a little bit of like, I'm a little bit worried about, shall we stop this kind of activity, not get involved in the award ceremonies and things like that for like individuals. But the reality is ultimately, if that's the best decision for that individual, then that's the best decision for that individual, right? And that, it's up to the individual to ultimately make the decision. So, but we should always be elevating our people where we can.
Well said.
I also think the idea of like someone leaving and then they've built up this, so they've built up a profile, they've done all this great content and work, and then they leave, and then, or they go do their own thing, they take that audience with them. It's like, again, I would say that I've had to think about this with anyone who's like an influencer. You can't really worry about that, because over that time, what you have done is their audience won't forget about you. If they're highly engaged, they're still going to remember the positive affiliation with the brand. There'd be a pretty bad influencer in their new gig anyway if they then just went and started bad mouthing their previous company or something, which they probably therefore won't do. And the most important thing about the whole thing is content as well. So if they've created a load of content that you've been able to lift up, you can lift off, you can then just recycle so much of that, put that quotes through blogs, use videos that you would have recorded with them for like that whole time, and you can make use of all of the content again over like a longer period of time. So yeah, you'll lose the audience and maybe it's a bit sad, but like you just can start all over again with someone else, but still have a lot of like stuff that you've had from them doing so well at it.
I think if you just don't play with their quota for reasons other than you just want to bump it up, I don't think people will leave if they're happy and they get the support they need. But
yeah,
that's 100%. My own opinion. So if people are getting started, I know we get this all the time. If they're just getting started, what would be your recommendation? If you were ground zero doing this again, I know that we sure made a lot of mistakes. What would you guys do differently? Or how would you get started from ground zero, building that demand engine and then aligning it with sales?
Trying to think about how we would do it differently. There's still things that I probably want to like working on now that I think would maybe focus on going for like first and foremost. I mean, even you picked up in the content power hour we did, like I'd want to have like maybe focused earlier on that really smooth inbound process, so that all the demand you can create or you do create, you've got a really scalable process that you can make super smooth. I think that'd be like a number one now. I think there's probably more work we could do with getting like with the inbound SDR team as well, and in terms of what the marketing mission is, which it took, I think early on I didn't like talk about so much about what we were doing, present back how well we were doing, findings like that, and all of that is really important because it gets them on board. It makes sense when people are coming through what they're saying to them as well. So there's like all those sort of alignment things. I think I've definitely made moves and changes, and then afterwards Dave's just messaged me being like, what's this? So I think all those sort of things, would be definitely things that like are continuous improvements as well, but I'd want to change, and then try and get as many people on board with as well with the social posting side as possible, and to see the value in it.
It's a hard
part. Need to encourage them, because I think the reality is that everyone wants this to be that I'll tell them what to post, or the marketing team will write it all for them and send it, and all of it only works with authenticity. Like you have to do it yourself. So it's like how we can encourage the team to take part in it themselves. I think that's something I still haven't quite worked out how to do. I mean, you can't hack it either. Like I think there's tools out there, even like everyone's social and stuff, but I think everyone sees through those now because they don't really, unless it's authentic, unless it's coming from the person, it's not gonna achieve what you want it to.
Well said. Yeah, it is. It's super hard. Like, how do you go and encourage somebody to do something they don't want to do because they don't see the value in it? Mm-hmm. I'm sure David's worked with enough salespeople to know some people just aren't coachable.
Yeah, that's very true. I just from an outsider's perspective, outsiders looking into Cognism's kind of it's been very recent, right, Liam, that we've moved to that demand gen model. I think one thing that Liam, Alice, Fran, and the team have done incredibly well was kind of brief the sales team and the sales leadership team on what the impact would be on us switching to this demand gen model as opposed to the MQLs. And I think, you know, it was really there was a sales pitch almost that they all did that was like, right, guys, like, you know, initially you're going to get less leads, right? But you're going to get less of the I don't know whether I can swear on this, but yeah, exactly, right?
Let her rip. It's okay.
The shitty leads that is wasting your salespeople's time, and you know, like aren't converting, and we want to focus up and like make sure that we're getting more of the leads that you really want. Now it's going to take time, and it's going to build, and there's going to be, you know, it should be in the graph should look exponential, but that it does mean that it's going to be flat for a period of time. And I think the guys did a fantastic job of that. So if you are a marketer, I'd say, and looking at like moving to the demand gen model, then perhaps that's something you want to think about. And I think it's also reflected if you as an individual are thinking about like posting for the first time. I actually think, I don't know, I think that I like spiked early. So I had like I think people were like, oh, I know that like Dave Bentham's posting online, right? And it was all my friends and people that kind of know me going like, oh, this is cool, like I support him. And then they started getting annoyed at the fact that I was posting all the time. Because they're not even in sales, they're just my friends from home. And so then it kind of leveled out a bit. There was like, you know, first literally few weeks, it was great, leveled out a bit, and then kind of it's, you know, it kind of gently moves up from there, right? So I think if you're an individual, again, you need to also understand that you're not going to necessarily see all of the results straight away, or maybe you will for the first couple of weeks because of that fact, and then it'll slow down again. So yeah, that would be,
you're selling to salespeople, and that's everybody you have in your audience and your set, because that's all your connections. I think that's the hard part that nobody talks about too, is who are your connections? Who's listening? And now it's a little bit different with creator mode and people being able to follow you, but it's hard. Like, I think the one book that like shattered everything I thought about marketing was Challenger Customer. Because I just never, and it seems so stupid to say out loud. You're like, oh, you should come with an insight and a unique point of view that, you know, when you connect the dots, they just can't unsee it. It seems like a no-brainer, but how do we get taught to market?
Mm-hmm.
You state the obvious, and it's not like, I do want to increase my pipeline. Yeah, I do want it to go and move through my pipeline faster. You know, cool. Have a nice day. And then somebody goes, hey, did you notice that, you know, your lists are subpar, and, you know, the provider you're using isn't really great in EMEA. You should buy Cognism. Well, maybe not the end part, like interested, but you know what I mean? Like, you change it up, and it's crazy how it changes the conversation and even the comments. Like, that was the one thing that amazed me, is when I read that book and I started changing my content style. And that, I will say, if you're struggling to write, it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
Anne Hanley's new book, Everybody Writes. Have you read it, Liam?
No, I haven't. No.
Highly oh man, she just destroyed everything I thought about writing. It's so good, and she's funny. So if you guys want to get better at writing and you hate reading writing books, this is not the same thing. She's really funny. She cracks jokes, has a great sense of humor, and it breaks up the text, so it's not these big walls. But yeah, it's just, that was the one thing I noticed, is that it was a huge unlearning curve to get started. And it wasn't a couple weeks, it was months, if not a better part of like 2 years, to go and unlearn all of the bad sales habits, bringing them to marketing.
Yeah, I think it's massively, it's like, it's all about the consistency of it. And I definitely had the same thing as Dave, in that I just had, at first, all my posts did really well. I think it was a combination of my friends liking it and then quickly getting sick of me. And then LinkedIn also, maybe, I think LinkedIn does like a little bit of like, tries to encourage you to begin with. That's my theory. It's just like, oh, go on. And then they just all completely dipped off and crashed. And yeah, I just thought, but you have to like keep at it. And then slowly I started to think, see that, you know, you're starting to build an audience of the same people that are coming back. then there's this other benefits that start happening. You know when it's starting to work because you'll see the dark social stuff. You'll be tagged in things, and like the first few times you're tagged in something as someone finding what you said was valuable. I think that is extremely motivating. Then you get started getting invited on like webinars and like podcasts and stuff, and then it all starts to like it's like becomes exponential. It just all starts to grow. So. And you just got to get through that little dippy period, which you see as you literally see in when you do demand gen marketing for a company. I've actually got a graph where it goes like this, down, flat, of like inbounds and sort of pipe, and then just pings up. And it's because it has to all scale together. And it's exactly the same with your followers and stuff as well.
How long did it take before it bounced back? I know it's not gonna be the same for everyone. I'm just curious for you guys.
Yeah. So the general rule like is like plus it's what is it? It's about plus what is it, 2 of your sales cycle. So obviously if you've got like a big enterprise, it's like 9 months, it's gonna take a while for you to see the results, and that's why you've really like gotta like if you've got a long sales cycle, you've got to set it out. Fortunately for us, like especially on inbounds, so I'd say like our sales cycle for like for commercial, like SMB would be set around 3 months, but for actually inbounds when people are coming in high intent, it's about a month. So you can actually see you can see that turnaround quite quickly for us, but it's taken longer on those enterprise inbounds to come in, and still kind of waiting around for that spike. But yeah, you have to have that patience.
That makes sense. And then you got to go and tie in David and be like, so guys, I don't know if you want to go and download that or get that parallel dialer now, but you're going to have to pull some weight for the next 6 months more.
It's true. It's 100% true. And that's maybe we mentioned at the start why doing sales development in parallel with this is so effective is like there are some times that we can pull away. I think I'm sure this is fine me saying, Liam, but like at the start of the year we had some like big predictions on that our marketing team could pick up a lot of the smaller businesses that were coming in that were higher intent, and that was our best way forward. And I think we realized pretty quickly that like it was going to be difficult, and so we sales development we pushed a bit more back to sales development to pick up as marketing scaled. So yeah, 100% true.
Yeah, you gotta have that balance. Curious when it comes to what are you guys' thoughts on comments? I know I'm curious, David, for you in particular, like what you encourage for your team. Because I talk to a lot of sales leaders and managers, and they say commenting is playtime. They say it has no place in sales, and I just do not understand it.
Who are you speaking to? Can you name names? Should we drop them in it?
Stir the pot here. Oh,
here's what I'd always say. Right, there's I think it was Josh Braun that spoke about deposits first. I think it was Josh Braun in sales. And his narrative in terms of selling was kind of if you kind of don't sell to people but you add value in their life in some way, then you're gonna in the end, or that'll help kind of speak to them. So I think he spoke about sending them like a blog, a relevant blog on LinkedIn as a way of opening up the conversation or asking them the question first. And I think all of those things are true, but the mistake that happened is a bunch of salespeople then took that as like, okay, I'm just going to take the latest blog, I'm going to take Cognism's latest blog about sales, and I'm going to send it to every single sales leader that I know, like virtually without context. Say, hey, like, what do you think of this? And that's it, right? And it's the same with commenting. If you're just going to comment saying 100%
great
agree,
post.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like people are gonna, and then within a second you're messaging them like, oh, by the way, have you heard about my product? Then probably it's not going to be it's not going to be so effective. But I, from a sales perspective, I'm always a big believer of like you've got to stand out, or you've got to break through the noise. I talk a lot about breaking through the noise, and I think not many people are, or people are still underutilizing social as a way of kind of building familiarity. That's what you're doing by commenting. Is if you're commenting and you're commenting well, then you're building familiarity. I have someone, I won't name a name, but I have a couple of recruiters that definitely have turned my notification bell on, and they like and comment, or they like every single post I put up immediately. I certainly had, and we were part of a sales cycle a couple of years ago where every time I did anything on LinkedIn, like they would just be there, but they wouldn't follow up immediately. I think that again, they're just waiting for the right time to reach out and
watching for those signs of pain. Ha! Time to strike.
Yeah. So yeah, I would do it, and I do it for familiarity, but try and actually engage. Like try and I find it hard when people comment on my posts, like to respond to the ones that are just like, oh, 100% agreed or whatever. And I want to have a conversation with people. I like it when debates are created in the comment section. That's when the posts do the best, because actually, or I think when they add the most value is because people are debating things.
I actually got a story where someone actually used commenting really well to speak to me, and so I think you've
tell a
spoken
story
to
about
well,
me. No, just
Dave, with Service Bell. So the guy from Service Bell was commenting on everything I posted, loads of stuff, out of genuine curiosity. Also, he positioned it just about demand generation, asking actually really decent questions because he'd read the post. And then obviously we were coming around to look for like an inbound routing system. And we're just working with marketing ops to pull up all the available vendors. And then I was like, oh, actually we should try Service Bell, because I've spoken to this guy loads, just answering questions on my comments. And that was like purely it. And then by the time we spoke, actually speaking on a call, I was like, I feel like I know this guy already. But
Liam, I'm really, really hoping as a salesperson that you went directly to the salesperson that was commenting and not through the demo form.
No, I did, because Nicholas actually pushed him back my way. So I went straight through him. We didn't go to direct. He got that outbound.
Good.
Yeah, go back through the form and then. Oh, wait, didn't I? Oh, yeah, we actually bought. That's always the best conversation on follow up. Hey, David.
For sure.
I just noticed that we're time, and I want to be respectful. Do you guys have any? Do you want to? Where can people follow you? Is there anything you want people to go and check out after this? Any asks of the audience?
Well, if you want to know more about demand generation and just marketing in general, I'm always posting about it. So yeah, feel free to follow me. I'm posting regularly and always looking for feedback and comments anyway. But yeah, that's I'm also, if you're also interested in anything demand generation, we do like a series called Demandism, which is like out, which we put out every month. So yeah, come attend those as well, and we can answer the questions directly.
He's got wicked videos, great content. Make sure you get in his comments and don't bitch slap him.
Yeah, and on my side, if you're doing any kind of outbound sales or sales development, then feel free to follow myself. I'm posting semi-regularly. I need to be posting more regularly. I've been doing this I've been managing teams of outbound salespeople for the past 7 years now. So hopefully I kind of can add some value. And then I just want to, I hate to plug, but Nicholas mentioned earlier that we're a mere contact list vendor, but I'm sure, Nicholas, you have a bunch of US followers. So I just want to mention that if anybody even like slightly is thinking, oh, Cognism contact list vendor, we're worldwide. So that's not a sell, that's a correction. All right. So that's allowed, right, Nicholas? I can get away with that.
If you guys want to prioritize your list and not just call people blindly, I'd recommend checking them out. They'll upgrade your sales process. Thank you guys for coming on. Really appreciate all this wisdom. Hopefully Laura will be able to go and tag in. I don't know what happened, but I feel like internet gets the best of us at the worst of times, just how it works. But thank you guys. Really appreciate this. Make sure you guys follow them. And if you have any questions for them, get in their comments. And we'll see you on another episode. Take care, guys.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it, Nicholas.